So does the mic work this time? Yeah, I guess it does. So hi, it's a pleasure to be here as always. My name is Andrii Degeler, and today I'm going to be talking about the evolution of paywalls. First of all, a little bit of a brief introduction. I'm a journalist. I've been working as a journalist since 2007. I'm writing about technology for the Next Web, for the Kyiv Post, and for Ars Technica UK. And I am also running a email newsletter and a podcast of my own called Proceed. It's focused on Central and Eastern Europe. What I also did is I wrote a few years ago a study on editorial structures and monetization models of a few tech online media, where I also looked at the ways of monetization of them. Which include paywalls. And since then, I've been watching the space very closely. So what I'm going to do now is to have a little bit of a brief history lesson, and then we can switch to the present and the future of the thing. So here is the problem. The problem is that the media ad revenues are going down and going down steadily in the last 10 years. In this particular graph, you can see that the American newspapers together with their circulation decreasing, they get less and less money from advertising. And the online advertisements do not give them as much money as the print advertisement. And monetization of online media becomes very tricky because ads are pretty cheap if you're thinking about content like context ads. Or they slow the web down if you think about video advertisement. One of the solutions to this is native advertising that has been mentioned a few times today. But generally, the ad blockers have become a huge problem for media, especially since they were introduced in iOS 9. Here you also can see a study done by one of those ad blockers called Crystal. It's one of the most popular ones around, and it shows how bad the situation is. So the red columns is how long does it take for a website to load up a page with ads, and the blue, how long does it take to load up a page without ads. And if you can see it from there, the worst difference is for the websites that are online-only media, including Kotaku, including Macworld, including The Verge, which rely heavily on online advertisement because they don't have a print branch. So the media at some point decided that if they cannot make the people placing advertising pay for everything, they should make readers pay for what they consume online. And this has become what is known as a paywall, which is a system that prevents internet users from accessing web page content without a paid subscription. There is a division of paywalls on hard and soft ones. Hard paywalls would not let you read the website at all until you pay. The soft paywalls would let you read some articles, but the others would still be behind the paywall. What is paywall, essentially? It is a lazy copy of the subscription model, which was norm for the print media 10 years ago, and which is a norm still. What has been happening with the paywall in the last 20 years? In 1997, the Wall Street Journal became one of the first print media to get a paywall on their website. Quite a few media followed suit afterwards, and then in 2007, Financial Times introduced what's known as a metered paywall. This is something you have probably seen. The reader can only read a few articles for free, and then afterwards they would have to pay for any article they would like to read. In a few years after that, the same metered paywall was introduced by the New York Times, and then in a few years the New York Times launched what is known as New York Times Now, which is something that can be called a mobile paywall. This was an app for iOS which cost $8 per month, and there you would get access to a curated stream of content from the New York Times. What happened in 2015, this year, not long ago? First, Financial Times, who was among the first to introduce the metered paywall, decided to abandon it whatsoever. They didn't like it. They decided that it did not help to form a habit with the readers to read these particular newspapers. What they decided to do, ironically, they went back to subscriptions. They went back to normal paywalls, but now they offer a trial subscription that is much cheaper, and in the time that the reader spends on their website paying a very low amount of money, they can actually form a habit and then can be charged more afterwards. And then later on, the New York Times decided that the NYT Now app did not do as well as they wanted it to, and they set it free. So now you can just download it and read the New York Times content. So the question remains, is it good or bad? Is it a success or a failure? Does the concept of the paywall work at all? Unfortunately, my clicker doesn't work at all, so I cannot really... Oh, yeah, now it does. It kind of depends. It depends on the niche. Definitely not a silver bullet. Paywall is not something that works for everyone, unfortunately. It is great for niche publications. It is great for publications that generate unique content. So the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Times, Financial Times, they generate content you can't really find elsewhere. So you will pay for their paywalls because you need this content. But for example, The Guardian has never had a paywall at all. They didn't like it. They decided to be totally and strongly against it for all the time. The Atlantic and Johnston Press tried paywalls, but then abandoned them because it wasn't financially as good as they wanted it to be. And paywall definitely does not pay all the bills. It cannot be the only source of your income as a publication. Now, that was the history lesson. Next up is a few ideas that I have seen recently and that, in my opinion, are closer to the future of the paywalls. First one. This startup is called Blendel. It is a Dutch startup that works in the Netherlands and Germany mostly. What they do is think about iTunes for content. It is just one paywall in their app on their website. They basically agree with the print media, mostly with the print media, to get their content behind their paywall and sell the articles separately. Not as a whole newspaper, but article by article, unbundling them and making people pay much less than they would be paying if they wanted to buy the whole newspaper. It's like 29, 39 cents. As you can see, it's pretty cheap. It also works all right with a traditional paywall, so the media can still run a normal paywall on their website and give the content to Blendel. Now, there are problems with it, and the critics have a few good points, particularly that this idea of iTunes for content might not be as good for the English language as it is for Dutch and German, because in English there is a lot of content around, and chances are the readers will not want to buy your content, but will go somewhere else and get about the same content for free. Also, it's not as good for online-only media, because the print media, as we remember from the from one of the first slides, print media get a lot of money from print advertisements still. And online media gets money only from online advertisement. And if they give their content to Blendel, they cannot show the ads anymore. So this becomes a bit of a problem. Now, another idea, you might have seen what's called piano media. It's a clever thing that is still working in Slovakia and Poland. This is another attempt on building one paywall to rule them all. But what they did is they get a flat fee from the reader, and they let the readers access a number of websites which participate in the platform. The websites can run their ads, and the websites get a share of the revenue received by Piano Media, depending on how many people actually came to their websites to read their articles. It all sounds great, however, it still needs a commitment from the side of the reader, basically. If you need to read just one article, you cannot do that. You still have to pay for at least 1 week of subscription. That's not exactly what today's readers want to do. Now, let's get a bit closer, in my opinion, to what the future holds for the market. There are a few interesting startups that surfaced recently and that offer Bitcoin micropayments for reading the articles. First one, Satoshi Pay, can actually charge you not even per article, but per paragraph, or per image, or per video. So you just click once, and then you pay a very small amount of money, normally a few cents, American cents, and then you can read the thing you wanted to. CoinTent is a service that offers both subscription model and pay-as-you-go model, and the Bitwall is something that offers you either pay with Bitcoin or tweet something that they want you to, or view an ad. This is very similar to what's been talked about on this stage earlier today. The problem here, however, is that Bitcoin is not popular at all among the normal readers of the newspapers. Who uses Bitcoin every day here? Can you show your hand? So basically no one. I don't either. So the point is that all these startups that are here on the slide, they are basically nothing more but Bitcoin wallets. The reader still needs to register. The reader still needs to use their payment card to pay for Bitcoins. They buy Bitcoins, and only then they can fine, great, seamlessly use it on the website of media. However, even though Bitcoins are not exactly the best solution, micropayments actually seem to be. Micropayments, in my opinion, is something that is going to be the future of the paywall, because the pay-as-you-go model is much better for media, and it's much better for today's audience, for the current generation, because it has no obligations. It is easy to pay, it is easy to collect, but again, it is still not a silver bullet at all for all the media. It cannot pay for all media's expenses, and media will never ask readers to pay for everything, just because they most probably will not like the answer. No one really wants to pay that much for articles. However, in my opinion, micropayments is something that we are going to see more and more later in the years. Thank you so much, and you can find me and ask any questions if you want to. Thank you.